Hello, everyone. It's 6 o'clock, and we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the meeting for the December 18th, 2024 Planning and Zoning meeting. I'd like to note that all the Planning and Zoning Commissioners are here and present, along with Mayor Martin, Councilwoman Tina Brown, and Councilman Dave Brown. Let's go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to take a moment of silence for individual prayer and self-reflection. Okay. The first item is the approval of minutes from November 20th, 2024. The minutes have been sent out in advance and a copy in front of us today. Is there any call for any deletions, corrections, or changes? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve the last month's minutes.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, thank you. All in favor, say yes, or raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? Oh. Do we have anybody sign up for public comment for non-agenda items? Is there anybody at this time that wants to have any comments on any non-agenda items? Okay. Hearing none, then we will go ahead and move into new business and open up the public hearing. I'm going to turn that over to Dr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Planning Commission. First public hearing is on CU 24-01. This is a conditional use permit application. Frank Pittman, engineer, is the applicant for Christian Stewart and Ashish Patel, property owners. This is for a daycare center in the MU zoning district. It's on 2 acres of land, fronting on the south side of Eagles Bluff Way and the west side of State Route 53. The planning staff consulting planner recommendation is for approval conditional. A little bit of background on this, as you know, there was a text amendment that came through. The applicants desired to have this as a permitted use. The City Council and I believe the Planning Commission also elected to recommend that it be a conditional use rather than a permitted use, and that's the way Council adopted it, and as a result, the applicants are here today with that application. It's advertised for public hearing, and staff recommendation is approval with several conditions. I'll turn it back over to the chair for the rest of the public hearing.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Okay, if you want to come on forward and state your name and address.
My name is Frank Pittman with Pittman McGarry Engineering. We're at 1050 Barber Creek Drive in Watsonville. I'm here representing the developers of the site, which are not the current property owners. My client has it under contract. They are they're a group out of Watsonville that currently has 3 operational daycares, 2 in Oconee County, 1 in Athens. They've got another one that is about to start construction down in Lake Oconee, and they would love to build a facility here in Houston. As Dr. White mentioned, this is currently MU zoning, which allows a lot of commercial uses, such as offices, bakeries, bed and breakfasts, clinics, banks, fitness centers, laundromats, hotels, restaurants, retail centers, microbreweries, all by right. It does require conditional use for daycare, and that's what we're here for. My client would like to build roughly 13,406 square foot daycare. The site plan that was presented to you guys does show an additional 4,000 square foot retail center. that is really just almost a placeholder because there's that much land left over, but their primary focus is the daycare facility because that's what they do. It's a, a pretty low, traffic generator. I think it would be, highly used in this area. There's been a lot of, residential growth. And, really, I would ask you guys' recommendation and we'll leave it up for any questions that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor? Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll open up the discussion. What we might want to do is kind of see who all wants to talk amongst the commission and maybe take turns. Is that fair enough? Y'all have,
I'm gonna talk.
okay, Ace, I think mentioned you wanted to talk as well.
And I'm sure everybody's surprised.
Anybody else at the moment?
Scott?
Okay, then Scott, we'll start with you.
So I'm gonna say first and foremost that the financial challenges that young families face today are something that's not been seen really by too many earlier generations. And these financial hardships are made even more difficult by the need for two-income household budgets, which create a need for daycare centers. And my comments following this should be considered from the perspective of what is best for the financial and physical well-being of our city's residents and those that might utilize the services of this property's application. So as the gentleman, Mr. Pittman, said, the traffic in this area has increased dramatically over the years. I pulled up 3 traffic studies that I have, one from 2021, one from 2022, and then the most recent one from 2030. And the traffic that is on Highway 53 right now at the peak AM hour at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock is up 76% over 2021. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, it's up 102%. In the afternoons, and this is at Jefferson Street and 53, by the way, it's not just a random spot on 53. In the PM times between 4 and 5 o'clock, they're up 165% over 2021 and 159% in the hour of 5 to 6 o'clock. So the traffic on 53 in front of this particular development has grown dramatically in just 2 years. And that 2023 number was taken in July, the 3rd week of July, which is the second highest vacation week of the year in the United States, for what it's worth. And the recent Brazelton-Houston mobility study has put the Jefferson Street AM intersection with 53 at a grade E in the mornings and a grade F in the afternoons, meaning that intersection is in need of some sort of traffic mitigation already. So I'm just going to get started. The car wash is used as a reference for a reason to possibly approve this site as a commercial development. That car wash was spot zoned by a previous council, meaning it was approved for a use that was specifically denied by the area it was in. But the previous council elected to do it, and I was always brought up that 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so I don't think this current council should be held to an egregious action by a previous council. Other businesses mentioned that Mr. Pittman discussed could be approved for this property and would not concentrate the majority of the vehicle visits to it in the peak hours. Right now, they're going to have 638 visits that are going to be concentrated primarily at 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. Every one of those visits is going to require either a left turn into the place or a left turn out, both creating exponential chances of tragic accidents that either cause death or significant paralysis if it's a T-bone accident. Other types of businesses, like hotels, bed and breakfast, would also have the potential to generate hotel tax revenue for the city, for what it's worth. This facility, even if it's a $3 million building, I don't know what the building is gonna be, is gonna generate about $3,000 one time a year in property tax for the city. If the city ever has to put a red light up because of bad accidents there, it's probably gonna cost us in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $700,000, which means even at $3,000 a year, it'd take 150 to 200 years for the city to break even on that traffic mitigation. That was on page 3, the last paragraph. On page 4, the first paragraph, where it talks about impacting the neighborhood, having 200 or 300 cars come through in an hour at a peak travel time, you've now got a subdivision with 144 houses, 30 townhomes, I think, or something of that nature, and now you're gonna have 600 cars ingressing and egressing off of Eagles Bluff Way, which is meant to be an entrance to a subdivision. I can't imagine trying to get out of my neighborhood with 600 cars coming and going at the peak travel time, or 300 cars. The third paragraph on that page, the GDOT letter. Are you aware of the GDOT letter, Mr. Pittman?
I was given it with the staff report.
Okay.
I've never seen that previously, no, sir.
So that letter was submitted with the application.
No, we didn't submit that letter, that was given back with the staff report, we did not submit that letter.
So that letter was not submitted by them at any time.
Not by my client. Now,
It was not part of the application itself, because there was discussion about that, I found it and included it as an attachment to the staff report.
Okay. So that letter was dated, I think, October 22nd, which was less than 60 days ago. And GDOT approved that letter based on only a car wash being on that property. And when GDOT was contacted about the totality of the proposal for this property, they had never heard that, even though the letter was dated October 22nd by a representative of the current owner, I guess, then, of this property. And so the GDOT would like to, and I have the email from the gentleman, think that a study of the Eagles Bluff Way and all of the roads and driveways that are connecting to that, there needs to be a study of that to find out, by adding 600 more cars coming into that, essentially a driveway to a neighborhood, how turning lanes may need to be extended, or what mitigation might be needed to make that a safe entrance for both the residents of the townhomes, the neighborhood, and your potential customers. They also would like that study because the turn lanes on Highway 53 seem to be inadequate. If you're gonna have 150 cars in an hour trying to turn left into that Eagles Bluff Way, you could easily back 53 up for a half a mile or more. And we all want that. I know I do. But anyway, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. GDOT also recommended a crash analysis needs to be performed for the same reason. Because having that many people either turn left in, coming to drop their kids off, and or then turning left to back out, we're gonna create a lot of opportunity for crashes. So they think a crash analysis needs to be performed. So for me, until I would have information to go on to especially protect the health and the well-being of our current citizens or citizens that would be his customers traveling from other cities or counties, I'm not real sure I could make an honest interpretation of what we should do on this. I think we need to have the driveway analysis done and the crash analysis done because I would hate for this city to approve something, and then 18 months later, we have a couple of accidents that change people's lives forever. But that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Scott, these two studies, who GDOT wants to see, who does them? Does GDOT do them?
I'm sure Mr. Peavy could tell us who does it, but it would be a traffic engineer, I guess.
I'm just asking. Do you know, Jerry?
It would be a traffic engineering firm that would have to do it.
Okay, so it's a third party. It's not the Georgia Department of Transportation that's doing it.
Correct.
I would think so.
Okay.
Who would pay for it?
The applicant
The
or the
applicant.
landowner.
Scott, are you done? You good?
I'm done.
Okay, well then,
Mr. Pittman, thank you for coming. And I just want to say up front, I am totally behind and support a child care center. I think we need it for the development of our city and to take care of our young families in the neighborhood. But I do have some questions. On page 4, in the first paragraph under findings, it talks about a fence in between the townhouse and the property. My objection on that particular thing is that it says a solid wood fence or masonry wall. I would oppose the wooden fence only because I have seen those, and then, 6 years from now, it's not maintained, it's warped, and it's faded. So I would ask the applicant to think about not doing that in the application, the wooden fence. That's on that first paragraph, about 6 lines down.
Ace, that's the adjacent property that we're talking about there. That's not the applicant.
But
That's the townhouse builder who's required to put that fence
Who
up.
puts that there?
The townhouse builder.
Oh, that's not, okay, I misread that. I thought that was them to put that in there. Okay, then I stand corrected. I'm not gonna talk about that. So on page 6, I had just a couple questions. On the paragraph 2, the second access, and I'm looking at this and I just may not see that, but where is that second access going to be at? And I just saw this map tonight.
So, our proposal was not to provide a second access. That was, y'all's review that added that condition. So we didn't show it because that was not part of our proposal. If you guys said that we need to do it, then we would do it, and it sounds like it's probably at the southern end of the property. We have to work with the existing owner to see what their plans for that, the car wash site is gonna be, because it needs to kind of work along with what they're gonna do.
And that was my assumption. I saw the drawings that included the car wash, and I just assumed that the second access was the one at the far end of the car wash. I just wanted to make,
I think it would probably be, if you guys held us if the city council held us to that condition, then I would think it would be the one at the southern end of that.
Okay.
That would go in.
So, hey, Jerry, so I guess my question, just to pull on that a little bit further, as that land is developed, and would that second exit be in place before the car wash is built? Because I know there's nothing in front of us now for a car wash. Would it be part of that development for the daycare center?
Well, the tough issue is that we don't know when that piece will develop, and we also don't want to write conditions of approval or conditions that require something off-site if we can help it. So the way, knowing that the planning commission and I think the council had concerns about the traffic all being out on Eagles Bluff, that we wrote a condition that I think that the applicant could live with, but also that was fair in terms of what the applicant could do. And that said, basically, you'll either provide a ride out on 53 on your own property, or given that we had that letter from GDOT and one of the former owners said they would be agreeable to do that, put that in the condition, that there would have to be an exit onto 53. And so when it would happen, the property could, it does pose a complication in the sense that if this daycare center gets approved with that condition, and then the car wash property does not wish to develop, how are they, that's gonna force this developer into a situation of either getting them to approve that exit on their property or revising their own site plan to put it on their property.
So maybe I'm confused, which is possible. I thought that entire piece of property was owned by one entity.
It was at the beginning, and it may still be, but there's a separate, well, I don't know about the car wash. I think as for the subject site, it is a daycare center operator wants to purchase the property from the current owners. Mr. Pittman's not representing the current owners. The current owners are, as stated in the application, Mr. Patel and so forth. And they, as far as I know, they still own the other site, but that, I can't verify that. It may be under the same ownership, it may not be.
Okay.
Can I take some, one minute here too?
Sure.
How many people that come to a daycare center go back home versus go to work?
You know, it's different places. I mean, a daycare center in Oconee County is different than a daycare center. I mean, it's just different depending on where you are.
Okay.
How many stay-at-home moms versus working moms? Typically, like in kind of all over the place, and I don't know what the working demographic in your community is, and I hate to not have an answer, but, you know, these guys, they've got two in Oconee County, and about 80% of those go back home. They've got one in Athens, and about almost 100% of those go to work.
And I appreciate your honesty on that, because my understanding from the traffic study that's been done in Jackson County, roughly 56% of all the people in Houston, when they leave their house, they go to work. So I'm going to assume they're all going to go to work. And the majority of them in Jackson County go west to Hall County or Gwinnett County. So I'm really not sure that a southbound exit turn lane is going to be beneficial in reducing the number of cars that are going to come in there and then turn out, because most of them are going to want to go to 85 and get on 85 and go south, or keep going on 53 to the hospital. Well, if they turn right, that's gonna dump them out almost at Jefferson Street. And then they're gonna turn right on Jefferson Street, go down to 211 and wait forever behind tractor trailers, and then come back up. So I guess I'm saying, I'm not real sure, if y'all hadn't studied it, I'm not real sure the benefit to you.
I tend to agree with you 100%. I mean, and that's why we didn't propose it. You know, the existing exit up there's got a kind of a short dedicated right turn lane anyway. So if somebody's turning right, they can get out most likely. I mean, we're willing to do it if that's what the city wants to see, because that was the condition that's been recommended. I mean, we wouldn't argue and fight it, but I agree with you. I don't think it's a benefit for this project. Now, once the southern end, the car wash site develops, so that's a different.
So they go back home, they wash the car and go back home.
Yeah, that's a different conversation, because they don't want to leave there and go through the daycare and then back around. You want them to be able to come back out down there. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it's a benefit, but we're willing to do it if that's what everybody wants to do.
I would feel more confident in that if we had the two studies. I think that would help us better understand what would be in the best interest of the city and your clients.
I understand that. I do. I mean, I guess I'll make kind of a point to that. I mean, there would have been a traffic study done when the master development was done, showing this as commercial use. That would have been reviewed by GDOT at that time.
That was 2008.
I get it. It's still the same area coming out of this property though. And then just a quick clarification. Yes, this would be 638 daily trips, but that's not 638 cars. That's, half of those are coming in, half are going out. So that's 300 total cars, which is about 150.
Okay.
150 in the morning, 150 in the afternoon. And what you study is about half of them end up leaving left, half of them go right. So you've got 75 left turns and left.
150 per peak hour in the morning.
Correct.
So it's 300 in the morning.
About half of that from each direction. So you wouldn't have 150 turning left, you'd have about 75 turning left, or about 75 turning right. That's how you can study that.
I would really like to see a study on that, because going to the left is the city of Brazelton and I-85. Almost all the homes are down 53 to the south.
Yeah, so you may have more left turning in and more left turning out. They're probably going to work towards
Yes.
Brazelton 85, but they're coming from home from the south.
Correct. So they're gonna be coming from the south, turn left in, then turn left out to go to 85 and go to work. And then in the afternoon, those people are gonna come back, turn right in, and then turn right out. So you're gonna have 300 roughly people turning left in the morning to peak traffic times, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I guess.
And by the way, this isn't me asking for this. This is a traffic engineer whose job it is to ask for this, not me.
I know Jonathan real well.
Okay.
I mean, I guess what and my client here, so I'm spending his money a little bit, but, I mean, I think that my client would be amenable to having a traffic study done. I guess to see if there are any improvements that may need to be done. I guess I would still ask if it was possible to go forward with a condition that this traffic study be done before any permits be issued, from a contractual obligation that my client has. They're under contract to purchase this property. They've got a timeline that's contingent on this conditional use being approved by a certain date. And if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen whether we do a study or not.
So the problem that I see, and I may be wrong, because I'm just a poor ignorant country boy, but if we give approval, with the only condition being that the study gets done, then the study gets done, but what if the study calls for the need for more conditions? And you've already got your condition.
The condition would be that a traffic study be completed, and any things that come out of that traffic study be requirements as part of a permit to build this thing.
So if it calls for a half a mile and a $500,000 red light, your clients are gonna go along with it.
Well, he may say, no, I just can't do it, and he walks away.
Okay.
I mean, it's no different than if we were rezoning a property, that's what you do in a zoning action. If that's what comes out of traffic study, then my client's got a decision to make either I'm willing to do this, or I just can't do it, we walk away. And then, that's his decision at that point in time.
After he's bought the property?
Well, I mean, I'm speaking for him a little bit, he may come back and say, we just can't do it, they may walk away tomorrow. I just, it sounds like that's a hang-up. I know that their timeline is under crunch right now.
So I guess then my question was how many severe accidents that include death or complete paralysis below the neck are your clients willing to take?
I don't think anybody's willing to take anything, but
That's what you're saying.
no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Sounds like it.
They're implying they would be agreeable to do a traffic study and do,
Yeah, but,
and do recommendations before any permit.
so would you pay for a piece of property and not know that you could build what you want to build on it?
That'll be his decision to make.
Yeah, but his man's not here. He's saying he's speaking for him,
No, but if we added that condition, if I'm understanding correctly, if we add that condition and approve it with that traffic study being done, any recommendations being done before permitted, right? Then we can, he gets his approval for that. But yes, if it comes out that it's too much, he can walk away. Or they can maybe figure a different use for the property.
Or come back with an alternative.
Right.
Yeah, Madam Chair, that Mr. Pittman is authorized to speak on behalf of his client. And, he has said he was willing to do that if there was, including a condition that if there were mitigation recommendations made, that those would be requirements. And then he's right, if by chance, he circles back to his client tomorrow and that was the condition, and they said, no, we don't like it, he'd just indicate that, either they withdraw it or they cannot accept that condition and will not proceed with it. Or they can, as Mr. Pittman said, they can take the condition and go through with it, buy the property, plan everything out, and then find out that that study asks for more than they're willing to pay for, and then they could they can withdraw their work anytime they want,
And-
basically.
Right, and so, you know, I may go out there tomorrow and say, hey, we gotta do a traffic study before you ever permit this, and they may say, I'm not willing to spend that money. They walk away, they cancel the contract tomorrow. If, at the same time, if you guys said tonight, we're not gonna give a recommendation for you to do a traffic study, they're gonna walk away tomorrow, because they're not gonna spend another $30,000 on a traffic study, not knowing whether they're gonna get a recommendation anyway. So, for them to be willing to do a traffic study, they need to at least know that they're gonna get a recommendation of approval before they make the decision to spend $30,000 on a traffic study, because that's what it's gonna cost. But they're not gonna spend that and then come back in here and y'all say, we're not even gonna recommend approval, and then they've wasted $30,000. And that's just being.
I appreciate that. From a different perspective.
If they know that at least y'all recommend approval, then they can at least make that decision. They're not gonna do that, not
I
knowing
agree.
whether they get
I
a
understand.
recommendation at all.
Because it sounds like traffic is our biggest objection. Like, we all agree, we want a daycare, or Houston can benefit from a daycare.
Absolutely.
Houston could benefit from a daycare.
But it's the
but
traffic.
I come from a healthcare perspective, that the loss of one life or the loss of.
None of us are saying that, so we need to stop
ambulatory-
even
I'm
saying
just-
that. We're talking about maybe having them do a traffic study and be willing to do what
I agree.
GDOT says they
Yep.
recommend to keep it a safe. none of us want it to be
GDOT can't
unsafe.
mandate anything. The only person that can mandate something is this city,
Well,
in a condition.
they can make the recommendations, and the city's not gonna permit it if those recommendations aren't done. Because my fear is the current zoning on this property can have unfavorable things right now. So a daycare is a good thing if we can work out the traffic situation, is my
I don't
thought.
disagree.
So if I'm wrong thinking that, because
There's a lot of uses that are allowed by right today, and I get.
that would be
you guys
unfavorable
are
for us.
conversation, but a restaurant or microbrewery is a lot more traffic than a daycare, and that doesn't come to you guys.
Because nights, weekends, there's no traffic.
That doesn't come to you guys at all. I turn in plans tomorrow, and Jerry and his staff review them, and they permitted it. There's no traffic study, there's no conversation, and that's not in any way a threat at all. I'm just saying, you know, there are a lot of things that could go on this site that are tremendously worse traffic-wise.
And the residents can benefit from a daycare. I hear that all the time. They need a daycare.
Yep.
But we need a
I'm
safe
not saying
traffic.
we shouldn't have daycare.
Right,
I'm saying we should make sure we look out for the well-being.
But we are by
Of our
requiring them to do a traffic
Yeah.
study and then looking at the recommendations
It
before
also,
permitting.
I'm sorry. It seems like there's more, complicating this whole thing is that this property is, the sale of the property is kind of more important than, you know, the uses are important, but now that it's two separate pieces and they each could be developed a little differently, which will affect, until all of that gels, it's gonna be, a bit of a crapshoot one way or another.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
just
just the
how,
normal
that's how
business.
commercial development goes.
Yes.
Very rarely is everything developed at the same
Yeah.
time, unfortunately. You end up with different owners and different timelines and different uses that
Yeah.
don't ever really gel.
But with the traffic situation as it is, that no matter what, how it gels out, there's something has to be mitigated with traffic.
That's all par for the course. I think, Brenda, you wanted to have a
Yes,
question.
does the applicant know about how many, or where the kids will come from? And how many would be coming from behind?
I don't know that I know the answer to that, and they do some pretty complicated studies as
Right.
as the demographics and where they come from.
Yes.
When they pick sites. I will say that they do. Now, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
answers to that.
Right. Okay.
All right.
I would assume there'd be a fair amount from the new development behind it. I mean, those are a little bit kind of starter
Yes,
housing. Most of those people have young kids.
uh-huh,
You know, so even 638 trips, that is a typical standard daycare number that
Okay.
does not take into account hundreds of on-site houses that actually may walk their kids there. So, I mean, the traffic is probably less than that, but that's not something you can really.
right, but they're already a part of the traffic problem anyway, because they're coming in and out onto 53.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see that. If they've done that study, I'd like to see that.
Madam Chair, can I, offer one other thing? I had a brief discussion with, Councilmember Brown, David Brown, about, and he was asking about, Main Street there. And, you know, the more I think about what Dave Brown said, the more I think maybe it should not be dismissed and maybe even further considered. I don't want to complicate this whole thing, but if you know where Main Street is and the city owns, can you pull up the, in this staff report, there's a survey, I think, it'll be near the end, near one of the attachments.
Right, that little short street.
Yeah, that'll work right there, that survey. Keep going. Keep going up. Yeah, there you go. So here on this survey, that triangle at the bottom, the city owns that. Okay, and there was a lot of discussion before about the townhouse project having this was before the planning commission got formed, but they had we were gonna get them to do a cul-de-sac at the end of that street. And then, when Shannon Sell was either mayor or city manager, one, he required the owner of that to dedicate that to the city. So anyway, the city owns that triangle portion, and we didn't really ever view Main Street as a connector road because it comes out so close to State Route 53 there. You really just don't want to have traffic coming out there. But on the other hand, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here that it may be, and we're going to do a traffic plan, you know, a transportation study and plan. And I almost think that maybe that was a pretty good idea to consider further, would be if people could come out. We wouldn't want them to try and come out and take a right or left on 53 from Jefferson Street. But if they came out there and we had relief for people where they didn't have to come out Eagles Bluff, they could come all the way down there, connect through the city's property, get over to Main Street, and then force them to take a right. Then you're distributing a bunch of traffic where the way we're trying to do it, it doesn't do not going to do a lot of good. And so maybe, you know, again, I was not in favor of that, but the more I think about it, I think Councilmember Dave Brown's probably got a pretty good idea, at least to look at further.
Yep.
I like that idea.
Okay. I just got a few more.
I'm good with that.
This is just a question, and you may or may not know the answer, Mr. Pittman. On paragraph 4, the hours of operation, was that a business decision not to? And the reason I'm asking this is I've been in communities before where childcare is hard enough to come by now, but there are some people like, doctors and nurses who work 24 hours a day. Was that a business decision not to be open 24 hours, or is that just something that, it's not a bad thing one way or the other? I was just curious was what drove it to 11 o'clock.
Well, that didn't come from us. That was y'all staff.
Oh, is that's us?
That's a staff
conditionals.
recommended condition that they not operate 24 hours a day.
Yeah, and they don't. I mean, they're normal.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm just concerned because the hospital in Brazelton is expanding, which just means, I'd love to have some of the doctors and lawyers and living in our neighborhood, but they work 24 hours a day, as well as, law enforcement and the fire department. It's something that, 24 hours a day doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I can tell you, my client, theirs do not operate 24 hours a day.
Okay.
I think it would be, somebody should look into that as a business plan for sure.
It was just a question, yeah.
Sure, but no, that was not ours.
Okay. On the, I just tied this to paragraph 6, but it really is, the parking lots and the road accessing the day center will not, they're private, but they're not going to be gated. Is that They will not be gated at all, so we'll have access. Great, thank you very much. On the, paragraph 8, the sidewalk, what's the intent of the applicant as far as how much of that sidewalk are they going to build? Is it just the frontage along that piece of property where we're going to have an isolated piece of sidewalk? Or is it going to go down south towards where the car wash would be? I'm just curious.
I think they would probably build it just along their frontage. That would be typically how that would work. You wouldn't typically build it on somebody else's.
And that makes sense. I just wanted to verify. Now, on paragraph 9, a little bit different situation with the multi-use path. Is that the same intention, just in front of the property?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's kind of,
I mean, typically, any kind of landowner is only gonna be able to have control over their own frontage.
yeah.
Now, municipality, when they go to put in a sidewalk, if they're right of way or the GDOT's right of way, they can do that, but it's usually never, I don't know if I've ever seen a case where a landowner is even able to build improvements. and stuff.
Sure, and I understand the sidewalk, I've seen it all the time. I'm more concerned about the multi-use path, because we're in a situation now in the city where we have a multi-use path that's not connected. And it's on the same side of the street, and it's 150 yards of dirt in between. And I'd hate for that to happen here, because it just goes into a state of disrepair, because nobody can use it at all. And I didn't know if that would be something that the applicant would be willing to at least talk to the city about.
I don't think that they can legally do that
Yeah, on someone else's land.
in front of somebody else's property. I mean, that's a Georgia DOT right of way. I mean, you're not allowed to do improvements in front of somebody else's property.
Well, how are we doing, I mean,
On here, number 9.
well, I'm just gonna ask the mayor a question. How are we doing that on Peachtree? How, is that not city right away between the Publix and the entrance into the Crestwinds neighborhood? Okay.
This is why we don't have that connection. Because 3 people would have to sit in the same way.
Okay. Just food for thought. And I think, let me see, the next question or observation I have was on page 11 on the garbage collection. I did not see, and maybe Jerry, you can tell me, I wouldn't want the garbage collection point to be visible from the highway. I wouldn't want a 6-foot fence in there, and then you've got an 8-foot garbage dumpster that you can see over the top of the fence. But there's no height description in there. I want to make sure that it's completely enclosed, and I don't know how we make that happen.
Well, it would be completely enclosed,
I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Yeah, I just don't want a 6-foot fence and an 8-foot garbage dumpster where you can still see it, the top of it.
Garbage dumpster would have its own completely enclosed wall that the facade looks like it matches the building, brick or stone or something like that, with metal gates on the interior side. It would be completely enclosed anyway, separate from the wall that is along the highway. And you wouldn't be able to see any of it from the highway.
Okay. And then,
Standards anyway about having to, you couldn't just do that without an enclosure anyway.
okay. And then, I think my last 2 questions, deal with on page 14, the site plan. On page 14, and this is on the map too, it shows that parking lot, with the commercial use at the one end and the daycare at the other end. Would it be the intention to make that parking lot a one-way? And my concern is 2-way traffic in a parking lot right in front of a daycare, to me, seems like a risk, where if we could make that a one-way circle. Also, the thought would be is if you had excess traffic dropping off kids, they could be still within the parking lot. Would that be something that,
I don't think that's a problem. I don't think the design of it changes.
No, it doesn't
Got
just,
angle parking there like that.
no, yeah, I think it's just arrows directing everybody.
I don't think that's a problem. I mean, I'd be fine with that being added as a condition even.
Okay. And I guess the last one's not applicable because the car wash property is separate from the daycare. So that's the few observations that I have. And again, I'm all in favor of the daycare. I think we need it in the city. And, thank you for being here, Mr. Pittman. I appreciate it.
I mean, they would be a good, they're a good group of people. They run a tight ship and their projects, I've urged you, y'all are out and about during the holidays, ride through, see what they've done in Oconee. And even the one in Athens, on the east side of Athens, out there by Tractor Supply, that just opened last year. They've got one in Watkinsville that's right beside the new Oconee County Government building, if y'all seen that. And then the other one is kind of out off of Linroo, Malcolm Bridge Road, right across from the school down there.
Do any of them, butt up against the neighborhood like this one would?
Yeah, the one, the one out on Malcolm Bridge, Linroo Road in Oconee does.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of those, like we talked about earlier, a lot of those people actually walk their kids to the daycare building.
What's the name of it? So we know.
Peach State Daycare.
Thank you.
Okay, so would a motion be in order? Can we look at, well, we've got the 10 recommendations that, Jerry has recommended. If we added an 11th recommendation of the traffic study, and the recommendations being agreed upon before permitting,
Well, you're making a recommendation for traffic study, and any recommendations from that traffic study, the applicant would, before they could get a permit, they would
Mhm.
implement those
so if we added another
recommendations.
condition to the 10.
There's
Sorry.
two studies, the traffic and the crash analysis. Yeah. And once again, that's not me,
That's fine.
that's the GDOT,
It all
Johnson P.
part of the same study.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the demographics that they plan to draw from.
They don't have that, so the motion is for something for us to do now, or not.
I thought they had already probably done it.
Yeah,
If
but
they
we don't
have.
that tonight
Not
to
typically
make a
that a
movement.
public document,
Okay.
because once it's public, you got competitors that
That's true.
use that information
Then they'll
for
take it.
free that they pay
Mhm.
somebody for.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying no, but I mean, that's kind of proprietary stuff too, that probably does not want to give up.
So what I think I hear is, you're looking for a motion with the 10 conditions plus
Plus an
the-
11th condition.
plus an 11th
To
condition
traffic
to do a
study,
traffic study.
and the recommendations being, agreed to prior to permitting.
Yeah, I support that.
Would it be binding?
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
I think you also recommend a condition to have one-way traffic in the parking lot, which if you wanna add that, let's add that.
Oh.
Police it later.
That wasn't already one of them.
And then the one thing that Mr. Butler mentioned, do we wanna get rid of the second access point to nowhere? I mean, if we're gonna do a traffic study, that's gonna tell us that we've gotta do that anyway.
I agree with that. Yeah, 'cause why would
I'm
you
just
produce?
afraid if we go build a driveway, then they can develop that lot, they're gonna tear it back out, because it doesn't work with what they're gonna do, and somebody's wasting a lot of money.
Well, I think if the crash analysis and the traffic study comes back, the way
Instead
some
of
people
having
suggested
an
to me,
access point, then it's gonna come out of study.
and I think what Councilman David Brown and what Jerry has brought up would be a wonderful idea. Because then
Oh, yeah.
get them out, and then they're gonna turn right down Jefferson and go down 211, get on 85, and go on back their way. Safe. I like that idea. But yeah, can we do that, Jerry? Would that make sense for you?
Yes. Hey, Jerry, would the traffic study take into account that property that the city owns if we ask them to, or when they do their study saying, oh, here's an alternative to use this and do that, or is that something separate? I don't know how it works, I'm just asking.
I've never seen a traffic study that assumed a way in and out that wasn't there already, so I don't think they would put it in the study.
It would be the way to study it, because you couldn't take the traffic counts as to what's going on out there, if it's not there. You'd be guessing.
But I guess where the study would help is, They do what's called a trip distribution or a trip assignment. Both are pretty much the same thing as, where are these trips gonna go? And, you heard Frank mention that usually they don't, traffic engineers just come up with a guess. They don't really know. They have an educated guess, and so usually it's gonna be 50-50 unless you have something that strongly tells you something else. And I think in this case, Mr. Butler's right about the trips. Most of the trips are gonna be going toward Brazelton and I-85, but it's also true that a lot of these trips are gonna go back into the subdivision. We don't know how much, but some of the trips are gonna go into the subdivision or into the townhouses. And so that in itself starts to help us. If we know the direction of trips, then we can say, okay, now if we open this up, if we opened up the triangle and put them on Main Street to Jefferson Street, about this many trips would handle that, would go that way. Maybe not, but you'd know at least some of those going southbound would go that way.
Yeah.
So it helps.
I mean, I think we all realize that additional traffic to 53 is something we can't avoid. It's just we're looking to mitigate it as much as possible. And still, take care of the people of the city with the daycare and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a trade-off. We understand that to some extent.
I know we're trying to get emotional on the table, but.
Oh, no.
Is it possible that if you build it there, that there could be a certain allotment that would be for residences within, say, a half a mile of the location, or is that illegal, or?
I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily illegal.
Or they would get the first crack at it, maybe?
Yeah, I would, and I'm not in the daycare business, but my guess is that they would probably not
Want
agree
to do
to
that,
something like
okay.
that. I mean, could you limit yourself? I mean, what if those people don't come?
Well, no, I'm saying if you have an allotment,
Yeah.
like we have 50 spaces that would be open to the people behind us. In other words, I'm looking at it from a marketing idea. Maybe Peach State says, hey, I know we're putting a lot of cars in and out of y'all's subdivision, but our first 50 pieces we're reserving for y'all. If you don't take them, then we open them up to other
Well,
people.
and I think that from a marketing standpoint, those are gonna be the first people they go after anyway.
Okay,
Because those people are less likely to pull their kid out and go somewhere else next
yeah,
year.
because they're right
Because
there.
they're gonna keep them there. They're gonna always go for the closest people first.
Okay,
Those are the ones that are gonna go door to door and stick a flyer in the mailbox kind of
Okay.
thing. Because those are the people that probably aren't leaving and when somebody else lives 1 mile down the road. So,
Okay.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think they do that.
Okay.
Do they come with a percentage? I don't know that they would even be willing to have that conversation, but their model is what, they just do what they do.
I never had it.
Okay, Brandon?
As people turn onto Eagles Bluff Way to come into the parking lot, and this is city property, of course, could there be a turning lane to take them into the parking lot so that the people who are going back to the subdivision don't have to wait for those to turn? Also, the right turn onto 53 from Eagles Bluff, will it remain?
Yes, it would remain.
Okay.
Yeah, that would remain for
Oh,
sure. Now,
all right,
as far as-
because it's, it's written over, but.
Well, that's because the property goes out into that lane. That's.
Right, so whose property?
Yeah, I mean,
The actual
that lane is
property.
part of this property.
Okay, all right.
Today, so I mean, but no, there's no intent to change any of that.
All right.
So that's in place. As far as the left-hand turn in, so there's a median out there. So
Right.
when somebody's turning left, they're gonna be out of that lane anyway. As they pass that median, there's a whole.
Well, if there's a backup, of all the cars
Yeah, I
in the
mean,
morning
now,
turning into the parking lot.
But think about it, when people are coming in here, and that was what we talked about earlier with times of day they're coming, as people are coming in here in the morning, they're less likely that people are coming into the subdivision at the same time. Those people will be leaving the subdivision and not coming into the subdivision.
And that's the only way in and out.
I know, but you're not gonna have a line of cars
Okay.
going into the subdivision in the morning.
Okay.
So Christina, I think we could take off the number 2 for the, under the recommended conditions of approval,
Mhm.
since we're adding the other one, so we'll still have the
So
same,
we're adding an 11 and a 12.
yeah.
Oh,
Because number 2 talks about the second access, so.
mhm.
Yeah, I am right now.
And 6?
I'm gonna make a motion, to approve this with the conditions that we have discussed.
Thank you, Chuck.
So that, those conditions are, 1, to remove the second exit, 2, to do a traffic study and
Crash
See-
check.
crash study, in which the certificate will be depending on that. And then 3 is to make the parking lot one-way traffic flow.
Correct.
What about 6?
I think all the others stay.
Everything else stays.
Everything stays. 2 will come up with the traffic study.
Correct.
Do we have a second on Chuck's motion? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman.
Okay.
We have water, we're good.
All righty, the next item on the agenda is Z 2403. I'm going to turn that over to Dr. White for reading of the item and presentation.
Yeah, Planning Commissioners, this is an annexation and a zoning request by GTG Holdings LLC. The applicant wants to annex into the city and zone the property R3, single-family moderate density for 37 lots. This property is located on the north side of Maddox Road. It's across from Stanford Way in the city. It is contiguous to the city. The staff recommendation was denial of the annexation, but if you elect to annex the property, you prove it with conditions. The reason for recommending against the annexation is that it would create an unincorporated island unless the applicants take out a 50-foot strip, which they've done. And so it's not technically unlawful to do what they've wanted, so it is lawful. I just don't approve of the practice of doing it that way. But I would point out that at the time this was written, the county had not provided a comment on this, and they have not objected to the annexation. So take that for what it's worth. The county is not objecting to it. So the staff recommendation was disapproval of the annexation, but if you annex it, if you recommend annexation, the R3 zoning is appropriate with conditions.
Can I ask you a question, Jerry? So what's the distance between that property and the closest city boundary?
It's across the street on the south side of Maddox Road. It's Brighton Park subdivision. All of that shaded area is in the city.
So Brazelton surrounds it?
Brazelton is to the, immediately to the north. It's not to the west or east.
Okay.
It's a little further to the west as you get in toward town, but not on the west or east. Those are both unincorporated.
So there would not be a physical shared boundary between the city and this?
Yes, Maddox Road.
Maddox would be, so, okay.
Can you explain to me a little, I was trying to understand you're creating an island, and from, I guess maybe I just didn't get it, but I was trying to, because I said, an island, if it butts up to the city, then that's where I was getting lost.
Okay, well, since around the early 1980s, state law has prohibited annexing if you create an unincorporated island. What that means is an area that's completely surrounded by one city limits or maybe two. So in this case, if Brazelton and Houston form boundaries and it's a white space among colored city areas, then that's what you call an unincorporated island, which is unlawful under the state law. And so they've recognized that it would be unlawful, and the way to go around that is to exclude that 50-foot tract that's shown on your site plan at the north area. That's part of this property, but they're proposing to leave it out of the city. So it would be an unincorporated strip that connects over to the property that's unincorporated on the left, thereby avoiding an unlawful island.
Okay, now I get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is the applicant here? Okay.
Thank you, guys. Hey, Alex Mitchum, I'm with LJA Engineering, speaking on behalf of the applicant, JTG Holdings. Brian Ponder, my client, he could not be here tonight, but be here for this council meeting. I appreciate the discussion. As you can see, that property is kind of it's like an unincorporated finger between, you get Bushman and Brownston. And we've been at this one for quite some time, trying to figure out the best way to do it, because this property's sitting in the middle, as you've seen on the area where everything around it's been developed. And it's a similar density and lot size of what we proposed here. We've actually talked to the adjoining property owner to the west, about coming in with us, because, to your point, that Chuck brought up, we were trying to figure out a way to do this so we didn't create an island, or actually clean up some boundaries, if you will, because my client is currently doing the subdivision there to the west of that, Jackson County. And then we also did the one to the north that's in Brownston. Originally, yes, we talked about going into Brownston, and just being transparent, we did submit to Brownston about annexing into them, and they turned us down. I wish I could sit here and speak intelligent about the reason why. I don't want to sound negative or anything. I was disappointed. This was put that way. But this property would be served by Verizon infrastructure for water and sewer. So that's, they're still willing to serve it. I think they just didn't have a presence out there on Maddox Road. That's what I understood. That's what I was told. So again, trying to be transparent. Appreciate Dr. Wise working with us too, trying to find reasonable ways to bring this in. I understand his position, where he comes from. In a previous life, I was a planner sitting where he's sitting at, and that was not something I necessarily wanted to advocate, was the annex property, but using that sliver of property, because you don't want to create an issue for yourself down the road, right? And I can appreciate that. In this case, on this side of the table, I'm trying to help out a client and help out a property owner that has had property developed all around them. And they want to find a way to develop it to similar to other properties around them. That's the reasonable request. So that's why we're here tonight. And I appreciate the discussion you had with Frank before I got up here. I think that was helpful and constructive. So I'd like to move the conversation forward to that point too. So I'm going to stop talking so I can answer your questions that you have.
Is there anyone that wants to speak in favor? Okay, sir, come on up.
Piece of property that is around where they want to develop, they're wanting to take my driveway and my easement, is what it shows here, and
Could you tell me who you are?
Sir, your name?
We need your name and address for the record, please.
Mr. Cathy, 1127 Maddox Road.
Thank you.
And you're speaking in favor.
Are you to the left or right of that picture?
To the left of
Okay.
the,
By the green? Over here?
He's over here.
Yeah, right there, okay, thank you.
Okay, so this one here.
I think he's.
I've been disrespected by these clients several times over the last several years. And I do not expect to be disrespected with them anymore. Trying to take something that's been there for 40 years, driveway, easement, and it looks like they're trying to take the other also that comes with the property.
Do you have the paperwork for that?
Do you have the paperwork for the easement that shows it runs with your property?
It shows it on that piece right there.
Okay, so it's platted?
Right.
Is that the easement he's talking, right next to the 4 lots, Jerry?
Of the property, right now, but I think there's sale of it based on your
Could you, just for clarification, point out exactly where that driveway is? I wanna make sure I understand
Right
where
next
it's
to
at.
the four lots.
My existing driveway, and then I have an easement that came with the property here.
Okay,
And, I just wanna make sure they don't run their stormwater across my property, damage it.
That's gonna be coming from
So I
behind.
don't want them crossing. Something's been there for 40 years.
One showing on this screen, you can see what you can do.
I own this property right here. So this is my driveway that's been there for 40 years, and then I have an easement here also that is part of the purchase of the property.
And for clarification, you have the diamond-shaped property there, correct?
Yeah.
It's square.
Or
pretty
square.
much Square.
so Jerry, I'm looking at this map here, and so I wanna make sure that I don't get confused. So it called it, an access easement. And what exactly does an access easement mean, to the homeowner? And what would it mean to the developer legally? Is there, I always get confused when those things are talked about. I don't want to be confused.
Access easement is, it's for his ingress and egress. You can't have an island property. You can't have a property that cannot be accessed. So this easement has to be there that he can get to his property from a road.
Because otherwise
Having
it's
this
landlocked.
many years,
Right.
having this many
So,
years.
and that's what I want to make sure, because when I look at this map, it appears to me, to the novice, that easement is not going away. Am I looking at that right? It's not going away.
This one shows it completely going away here.
Yeah, let me explain. Mr. Caffey, I believe, is the owner of 112-035C. That is a landlocked piece of property. He has an easement, apparently has an easement in two places now. On the far west side of this property, he's indicated he's got an easement there. Then he's got a driveway, which would also be an interparcel access easement, over further to the east. And the applicant, as I understand it, they probably do want to do away with the access easement to the west, but retain the access where his driveway is, so he'd have one way in. I don't know that other access easement, can you get through there at this time now?
They didn't put the driveway.
Okay, so it's an easement, but it's not travelable, if that's a word.
So it's not been in use.
It never has been used, and so the applicant can speak to their intent, but I read the site plan as retaining access to, Mr. Caffey's property where the driveway is, and that being a 30-foot access easement, and that should be sufficient for him to get in and out. He can argue his own case as to why he might want a second easement through there. That's up to him and the property owner.
About a 60-foot.
Just so I'm clear, I just want to make sure I want to understand your objection to both easements, or?
The other one, I don't use it, and it's just part of the plat. I'm just making sure that, they stop the other development right on it. I'm just wondering if they're gonna take it.
And your concern is that you don't want to have access limited to your property, and which is reasonable in my mind.
Or damage to his driveway.
The other one, we can do whatever. I just wanna make sure it's where the driveway is now. They don't cross it. I don't want property destroyed by their stormwater at all, running across it, going to the driveway or anything else like that, or have to improve my property to accommodate their stormwater.
Got it.
That's fair.
That's absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cathy, is your property a higher elevation than theirs? No. Is it the same? Right about the same?
It's lower.
It's lower, so there's stormwater will come to your property.
Unless they take it to the other side of the property.
Right, with that development permit. And your address is Maddox Road? Okay.
So the city's not gonna make any money on water and sewer, correct?
If we didn't serve it and Brazelton did, then there would be no fees, there'd be no connection fees, and there would be no, monthly usage fees.
So the only thing we would get would be the impact fees, we'd still get the impact fees.
We would get impact fees, and we would also get 1,000 feet of Maddox Road to
That we have to
maintain.
take care of.
Property taxes as well, we would get.
But the property, these homes are gonna be 350 to 450?
I mentioned served by Browson because obviously, from a capacity standpoint,
Right.
that may be a challenge for us. If this is the will of the Planning Commission Council, we're obviously open to that. I mean,
What's the price point you're anticipating these houses?
it's the market, what's the market's calling for over there? I mean, excess of $400,000, $500,000.
The current ones are 400.
So we would get $500 a house for property taxes? At the most? No?
I don't know what the millage rate is and how to calculate that at the moment.
I can calculate it. If the house is 400,000, multiply that times .00118. I can do it.
I just, before we move on, I want to make sure that Mr. Cathy's concerns are fully expressed to us.
Well, those concern is the buffer between their property and my property, but the county requires me to put a buffer between the property, and I'm not sure if they're, leaving that 50 foot.
It doesn't indicate.
Can you address that?
Yeah, this plan did not contemplate a 50-foot buffer to the, I guess that's your eastern property line. Where we have the full lots that were fronting onto Maddox Road, those were put there, because again, we moved, split the development down to accommodate the 50-foot strip. And so the lots that we lost in that's where we put those. Originally, we didn't have any lots there. It was just all open space, because again, and I don't know, Mr. Cathy, we've never met, I work with the engineering survey. But I understood that for my client, that's what they desire to do. But again, I was trying to find a plan that, that's most effective and efficient, yield for them, so that's why I went with the floor right there front, but still try to maintain that open space, between the backs of those four lots and his property. And also maintain the easement there. I think my firm was the one that actually drew up the documents for Mr. Cathy, for my client. So, because we recognize when we did all the research, the easement was on one piece of the property that wasn't being used to operate the state.
Does that respect that 50-foot easement, or property boundary in between your development and his property? Do you- No, it does not. It does not. So, and is that a requirement, Jerry, for that 50-foot?
No, for the county, not for the city.
No, we don't require buffers from single-family development to single-family development.
But the county does.
He says they do.
Okay.
County does, 'cause I've been up to their meetings with them. Unless there's some fencing or some slopes that's added, there's still a buffer. They can encroach into the property line, but there has to be some kind of buffer from the county.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but your big concern is runoff, storm drains,
Damage.
and the buffer.
Especially where they're not showing.
So, just so I got it clear, there's no requirement of 50-foot buffer for the city. However, we think there may be one for the county.
He's indicating it. I actually wrote the code some time ago, and I don't remember having anything of the sort, but I'm not prepared to dispute
No.
a fact about the county's land use regulations here at this meeting. I just can't answer it.
Oh, no. But if we incorporated it, then there wouldn't be the requirement, because it's not one in this, for the city. Is that a fair statement?
If you incorporated it, what do you mean?
Annex.
Annex, I'm sorry, annex.
Well, that's right. Any kind of county land use regulation would go away and be supplanted by the city's regulations.
So just out of curiosity, how many, at 2 residential units per acre that the county has, how many houses would this property be allowed to have? 16 acres?
32, I think it'd be, it's 16.177 acres.
So the county would allow the same density?
The county, I believe, would allow, 2 units per
Per
acre. This is like 2.18.
Yeah.
It's a little bit higher.
Okay,
But it's, I mean, they're developing the piece to the west, that's in the county, so whatever that density is,
it's the
the
same.
county has allowed it on
Okay.
that piece.
I had some questions about the whole thing, but are we done, are you,
That's my
I think we're good.
comment.
Yep.
I want to make sure that they're covered, especially with the buffer, I'd look for it to be planted. So I don't see the fact that these houses, like anyone else,
How many acres do you own?
over 10 acres.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Kathy.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yep, I did have some questions, oh, yes, sir.
Let's make sure that we're done with the public
Public
hearing before we,
sorry.
go to more
We
questions.
kind of got it off.
I forgot about that.
Were there anybody that wanted to speak in favor? I know we got into the in favor. Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll go ahead and open up our discussion.
Okay. I had some on page 6, just some questions. Again, back to the sewage and utilities. They are currently done by Brazelton, the city of Brazelton? Is that for that property now? Would that, who would assume that?
Mm.
There's no utility service out there?
There is utilities out there, the properties around it are being served by Brown.
If the city annexed it, it would be our service area. It is our service area now, I think. I haven't verified that. But, the point is that, the point of the applicant is that if the city has any trouble providing sewer service, they'll be glad to get that through Brazelton, and Brazelton probably can provide both water and sewer to the site.
So
Would this require a pump station?
There is
I
a
don't know.
pump station on that side of the road already that it would grab in. But this
To Houston?
No, no,
I
no.
was
Sorry.
Hey, I was gonna say, when did that get put in? Yeah, okay.
So, Jerry, if the city of Brazelton provides the water and sewage, does the city have any financial obligation if the property is annexed, but the water and sewage is taken care of by Brazelton?
That's a real good question, because normally the infrastructure in the subdivision, you'd put water lines in, you'd put sewer lines, and those would be dedicated to the city. And probably that would be the case, because the cities, ultimately, these would be public streets. So the infrastructure in the streets would be the city, but the city would not be, obligated to pay for, would not be serving, would not be dealing with the sewage effluent. So I don't know how that works, really. I never thought that, but, if we're not getting tap fees
Yeah.
for the project, and then we're gonna own the water lines, that's a net, liability on the part of the city.
And we'd only be, getting somewhere between $14,000 and $20,000 a year in property taxes, one blown water line, and you're upside down on that.
Okay. Let's see what else I had here. So on page 8, on the recommendation and the conditions, on paragraph 5, just I want to make sure that the square footage, I'm just concerned that that's small. I have 1,700 square feet to, for a single-story home. I sure would like to see that at 1,800 feet. keeping in kind of what we've talked about in the past. We want the city to grow, we want the city to prosper, we want it to be an attractive community. I would want to see that increased. That's just a thought. And then on line 7, on the garage. So this is just my observation on construction in this particular area. Many homes do not have a basement. What I see continuously is that half a garage becomes a storage facility, which in turn forces cars into the driveway. If the driveway is not long enough, it forces cars out into the street. So what I'd like to see there is I'd like to see some dimensions. I would like to see, for a 2-car garage, I'd like to see an 18-foot opening, garage door opening, 24-foot depth, and a 28-foot driveway. That accommodates 2 full-size cars side by side in the garage. 24 feet would accommodate a Ford F-150 pickup truck with a hitch and still give you room to walk around in the front. And a 28-foot driveway would also accommodate that same pickup truck. Because the reality is, in my world, that half that garage, in many cases, is going to become storage. And we're going to force cars out in the street. So that to me is, I think, something we ought to look at really hard.
And with an 18-foot wide, you're talking a single door, right?
Single door, correct. That's a single double door.
Well, but you got the sidewalk,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
you've got, this is
Yeah.
the width we're talking
or
about.
the width, not the length,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then this, I'm not so concerned about the depth of the driveway depth, not an issue. I thought that was shown as a lot, it's narrower than what you're talking about, but I think we could probably figure out a way to accommodate.
Yeah. And on the driveway length, to me, the driveway length starts at the sidewalk closest to the house. So it's not extending out over the sidewalk.
Can we discuss just annexation, first of all, and see how we even feel about annexing? Sure. I mean, just,
I agree.
because, like,
Because this could all be mute if we don't agree to annex.
correct, so I'd like to just say, how do we feel as far as annexing this part of the city? Like, does the benefit Houston to annex it?
I agree with Chairman Lady Christine.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that you deal with the annexation first, because if you don't believe it should be annexed, then I don't think that you even need to act on the R3 zoning, although you can still make a recommendation like I did, which is if you don't recommend annexation, you could still say if annexed, the R3 zoning with conditions is appropriate.
Okay. So let's
Want a
talk a little bit
motion?
about the benefits for Houston. You would have most information about that. It's
I can make a
monetary benefit.
motion now.
I mean,
So I got
Exactly.
a question. So if it's not annexed by Houston, it's not annexed by
It
Brazelton,
remains county.
what can you do with the property?
Whatever the-
They can try and annex it into Brazelton, which they tried and did not do that, so the last choice is to develop it for something under the county Unified Development Code, whatever that may be.
Okay.
How does it benefit the applicant to have it annexed? Like, why do you want to annex into Houston?
Well, probably the same reason my son and my future daughter-in-law will move to Houston, because they like the city and they're close to the interstate, and they can, make the, it's been successful, they like the police, police force, like the amenities that comes with that. Again, transparent, trying to go to Verizon first, but that's where the infrastructure that my client's already paid for, that's where it is. So again, to your point about, being efficient and effective with their money, that's what they were willing to do. Again, we were disappointed with that. They didn't want to bring, I think something had to do with not being out on Maddox and having to be responsible for Maddox Road, which I think a segment of it you already are. So that was the next idea, was like, well, it makes sense to go to Houston as well. That way you've got both sides of we did that just so we don't create them. We'd like to have all those properties in there, and of course, Mr. Kathy, he's entitled, we don't want to affect him one way or the other. We want to be able to do his property as he's taxed for like 40 years. But everything's been developed around it. So, again, we're just trying to find the most effective way to serve, the new residents we have there, potentially, and with the infrastructure that's readily available. So, but again, there's amenities with the city that a lot of people are attracted to, that, you're well aware of, the traffic and all that sort of thing. We don't want to build on the other side of Bushton and have our cars come through your town. We'd rather be in the town than going to work.
But they would still get to enjoy those same amenities, whether they were City of Houston, City of Brazelton, or Jackson County.
So,
Or Fire Peak County.
I think that if they go with the county, I'm not sure county has a sewer line that runs down Maddox Road that far, do they? So they would have to be on septic tank. They would have to be, they'd have to have half-acre lots with septic tank. And I don't even know that the county has water down Maddox Road that far.
Well, the county could make the land use decision, and the city of town of Brazelton or city of Houston, whoever they're in the service area for, could still
Would then
serve it
provide, okay.
for sewer if the county approved it. So it's not necessarily limited to septic tank use.
Okay.
I think a small part of this too, to your point, with that, I think about also representation, being able to stay with the county, as far out, having a city council, think your controlled land use around them versus being out, not having a voice per se, what happens around them. So, I think the other person.
Anybody having any other thoughts or discussion? Questions? Are we ready for a motion? Is there a motion in order?
I'm gonna hang myself out here a little bit. I think for the amount of revenue that we would be generating for a property tax and the headaches that we could have by assuming the responsibility for, as somebody who's had a 30-foot section of a 6-inch water line bust for lightning and see what that costs and what it does, I'd make a motion not to annex the property. I think the financial liability ultimately would be more than we'd ever take in property tax revenue.
Well, if Brazelton is providing water and sewer,
Point of order, we have a motion, we need to go to a second or no second before we discuss.
Do we have a second?
Is there a second on the motion?
I would second it.
Okay.
Now we can have the discussion.
Any discussion?
so if Brazelton is providing water and sewer, and something happens like that, is Houston responsible for repairing it? Did I misunderstand
We
that?
wouldn't want something annexed in if we weren't providing.
Because it would be our
We'd want the
roads and
revenue
right
to
of
have
way
those.
and.
Yeah.
So, okay.
My read of it would be that even if they develop, I don't know how you dedicate the water and sewer lines to the town of Brazelton if we're gonna accept the streets.
Mhm.
So I
gotcha.
think that the infrastructure comes with the streets, and it would be our obligation, even though the town of Brazelton was serving the effluent.
So then the next question is, do we have the water and sewer capacity?
My short answer was that we don't. I mean, that could be further analyzed, but we've already, the staff, the city manager, city engineer have been dealing with that issue heavily, almost on a daily basis for the last 2 or 3 months, trying to figure out exactly what we have to do. And, I mean, the .95 that we're planning to do now was long gone. That's allocated. The 2.0, as I understand it, is if it's not allocated, it's very close to being allocated with everything that we've approved and what we think would happen. So, I mean, I'm not the expert on the capacity, but the general assessment or conclusion is that we don't have additional capacity to serve more residential development. Now, let the mayor or anybody, if they wanna add to that, if they have better information, they can. No additional thoughts there.
If I may just talk about infrastructure for a second. So in Auburn, for example, we had the water and it was county sewer. Okay, so we provided the water and we maintained the roads. When we have a water issue, obviously we would fix it. But when it was a sewer issue, the county would fix the sewer line and the road at the same time when we come back. Now over time, yes, we're the ones responsible for repaving or resurfacing the roads and things, but if it's a city, say Broughton in this case, if it's their water and their sewer line, they would maintain the water and sewer lines, but you would actually be maintaining the roads and store them. Because they're getting the revenue from the water and sewer bills, they're getting that revenue, so they would be the ones that would maintain it. And if it's rolled reversed, you'd be doing the same.
Madam Chair, I suppose that could happen that way, where there was an agreement where Brazelton took over. But if we own the roads and the right-of-way, I mean, what are we doing annexing it?
Yeah.
If we have questions about whether to annex it and then Brazelton's gonna serve it and Brazelton's gonna own the water and sewer lines. And they didn't want to annex it in the first place, we've told that. So this doesn't sound like it's going down the right direction to me.
Any more discussion?
You're saying it's gonna be gravity fed to the city of Brownstown, but there's no sewer, and the sewer is gonna have a pump station unless they feed into the flock.
Brazelton has a pump station right there. Yeah, Brazelton has a pump station.
Yeah, we're in discussion by the planning commission now, the public hearing portion has been closed.
Closed, correct. Okay. There's no more discussion, then we'll go ahead and take a vote. So all in favor, raise your hand.
All in favor
Of
of?
not annexing.
Not annexing. Raise your hand.
So unanimous? Do you want to make a recommendation on the zoning if annexed, or do you want to just leave it at that?
Leave it at that and see what
Okay.
the council does.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item is other business and continuing our discussion on the Fishton sign ordinance. Any,
Yeah,
I know
so,
we had discussion.
the sign ordinance was given out to you at the November 20th meeting, and, you were asked by the city manager to study it and come back with any kind of recommendations that you might have for amendment, if any. It was an opportunity for the planning commission to take a look at one of our codes and see what you think about it and whether you think there should be something done differently.
Yep, I got some comments.
I know you do.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
They're gonna quit letting us.
I know it. On section, 43-102, page 3, subparagraph C, where it talks about, enable the public to locate goods and services within the city without difficulty and confusion. I would like to see in that, also that no signs be allowed within 150 feet of any traffic lights or crosswalks. So that, and the reason I say that, I go to across the street from time to time, and I always park on this side. And when you press that light, which makes people stop, it doesn't. Not all the time. So I don't want them to be distracted within 150 feet of that light. I would just think we need to have no signs within 150 feet of any kind of crosswalk.
150 feet's a lot, though.
You got a truck, those trucks are in, that's just my concern. And I think it's gonna get more challenging as multi-use paths get approved. We're gonna go across 53 to Kroger's. You know, we're gonna some people are gonna come down Peachtree to go to Publix. I cross Peachtree to come here to City Hall on my golf cart, so those paths and stuff like, I just don't want drivers distracted, that's all. Just a thought.
150 feet seems like a long distance. As someone who's been an eyewitness to 2 T-bones right here, I'm 100% with Ace on this.
Gotcha, okay.
At 50 miles an hour,
That 16-year-old who was doing about 45 still did stop in time.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Can I say something?
can I stop you?
I asked, at least I asked.
Okay, from the road.
So what if,
From the actual cross.
on our sign, because the signs you're talking about maybe are like cozy having a sale or
Yeah.
something like that. As I was reading this, it dawned on me, we really don't have a cohesive plan to help businesses identify themselves at a time when they might be doing a direct mail piece or a social media campaign. So rather than saying never, would it be possible to say you come to the city, get a sign application that has a dollar amount attached to it, and in the application, they tell us what other advertising they're gonna do that makes that sign beneficial to them for the 3 days or the weekend or the 4 days that they're doing it. And in other words, we want to help them make money. At the same time, if I see the same sign in the same place for a month in a row, I quit paying attention. It doesn't mean anything. Whereas if I see a Christine Moody open house sign once a month, oh, that means something. Christine's got a house for sale. So if we made the sign ordinance more relatable to marketing and the benefit of it, would that make sense? And I'm not asking for any comment, I'm just saying something to think about. And then maybe if the city had a social media presence, we could say for that $400 permit fee for the 3 days, we're gonna put you on our Twitters, Facebooks, whatever social media does, to help you market your bit. In other words,
Yeah.
how do we make it an equal exchange of commerce?
As I read through this ordinance, I think that's what the ordinance kind of does. I think it does help it helps the businesses. It just gives them specific guidelines to adhere to. And,
Okay, just.
yeah, just a thought. The next comment I had was on page 43-103, under intentions, content neutrality. I know that we're not trying to limit free speech and all that, but I would like to see something in there that prohibits any kind of signs that promote violence or hate. It's open. And, you know, today's day, unfortunately, you gotta worry about that kind of stuff. Just a thought.
Where was that, Ace?
That was,
Page 4.
yeah, page 43-104.
103B, okay, thanks.
Yep. The next comment I had was on page 11, under the paragraph for signs. I just thought that, I would like to see professional lettering on any kind of sign that goes up. I don't want to see a sheet of plywood with somebody spray painting something on there. Just to make sure we keep the city looking good.
Goats for sale.
Yep.
Chicken.
Yeah, exactly. On page 13, temporary ground signs, which is about halfway down there. I'd like to see those restricted from Highway 53. I want Highway 53 to look nice, and that's our main throughways. People go in and out of the city. I just don't think putting temporary ground signs makes sense. On the same page, the vacant property, it talks about limiting to 6 months, I think that, I think we need to make the limits on the signs on vacant properties no more than 6 months. Because they just tend to stay up there and they get dilapidated and they just look bad. Page 14, under 43106, exceptions, I mentioned this last time. On paragraph B, cemetery stones. I certainly don't believe they need permits. However, I want to ensure that there's no offensive headstones put up there. Because once something happens to the headstone, somebody puts a swastika on there or something like that, just that the city can just say, yeah, that's not appropriate.
I think for a private sign.
Yeah, I got a
private
problem
sign,
with that one.
I don't think you can
I think,
enforce that.
I think somebody should be able to put whatever they want on their cemetery stone.
'Cause they
It's their,
own that
it's their
stone and own
personal
that plot.
property.
You can't, it's not a
And
business
if the
or
government-
commercial.
I understand all that.
If the government's gonna step in and start doing that, then,
Hopefully
okay,
the
well,
funeral
do I need to
director
carry
will
my
advise
papers?
us.
I gotcha. No, I
I
mean,
don't think we can,
yeah.
Yeah,
on a
I
private
mean, you-
sign.
I mean,
we can't
after
do that.
Yeah. Huh? Just
I
about.
agree. Headstone is kind of sacred. It's your place.
I mean, if I
You
like,
own it.
you know, if I'm Southern, I like stars and bars. That's gonna offend a lot of people, the Confederate flag. I don't have a problem
I don't
with it, but
disagree.
Some people do, so I mean, where do you draw the line, and then where do we
But I
go?
just think from a legal perspective, like from Ave or whatever, we can't put something in there, a private owned sign. I don't know.
We're gonna end up down a rabbit hole that we'll
No,
never get out of.
it's a slippery slope. I certainly agree with that.
We could advise the Ave to give us his recommendation
Sure.
legally.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I back up 1 second, too?
Absolutely.
I just got a question on where it was talking about a vacant land, or, are they talking signs like for a building that was there? Or are you talking a
for
for
sale
sale sign, or?
All kinds of signs.
Okay, well,
But I think we should
vacant
prohibit.
land,
Oh.
vacant land, you go and sell a piece of property, I'm gonna sign a listing agreement with you for no less than 12 months for that. Now, we can have in our requirements that the signs need to be maintained.
And that's where and that's my intention. It's just.
Okay, yeah, I mean, the sign be kept up, and it doesn't, it doesn't have, all the bullet holes in it from people shooting at it as they were driving by.
We all remember
And-
those red buildings where the Kroger was at, and, yeah.
So, yeah, I got that, but,
Yeah,
okay,
that was my intent.
all right. I
I'm
got
sorry if it wasn't clear, my fault.
I got you.
No,
For
no.
sale signs are fine, but what about vacant land that they just have signs for advertisement? I don't think that you should be allowed at all.
I agree. I agree.
Something people think vacant land means, I can put my sign here, or whatever.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that one. Normally, you would not expect any signage permission to be allowed on a vacant piece of property. However, for sale sign, for lease, that's certainly a temporary sign that would need to go up. The other is, embedded in all this sign code that you may not realize is a lot of, federal law, constitutional limitations and stuff on sign codes. And the reason why you don't want to prohibit all signage is that they have a right to freedom of expression, including political viewpoints. And if your sign code allows absolutely no opportunity to do that, then you're probably, your whole sign code is going to get thrown out by a judge. So it's really, the content neutrality is another factor. It's not just freedom of expression, but you have limitations there on, you really don't want to have to read the sign in order to tell whether it's permitted or not. You should look at it and say, I can measure it, it doesn't matter what it says. That's what we mean by content neutrality. And that is really the one and only way to write a sign ordinance, is to make sure that it's, the only way to make it bulletproof is to not address any sort of content provisions in it. And so that's why some of it is written the way it's written.
And then the last thing, this is probably in contrary to what you just said, Jerry, under the paragraph about the flag, and it's deeply personal to me. but that the US flag should never, be flown other than the way it's supposed to be. We had that incident happen recently where a US flag was improperly displayed. And, and I understand freedom of speech and all that, but, you know, I've got friends buried in Arlington that went under the American flag, and I'm just, don't think the flag should be displayed any other way than properly.
I totally agree with you, Ace. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna fall under the sign ordinance.
There's a paragraph there about the flags.
What does it say? Tell me where it is. And I apologize.
No.
I did not get a chance to, read this. I've been kind of stuck with this play in Crestwoods for the
Oh, you're
last
right.
6 weeks.
That was
It's
awesome.
Stuck with what?
We just did a production, which
Oh.
was taking all of my time, so.
Oh, okay.
Well, you didn't do it when the lights went out? You had that whole night off.
Yeah, we
Oh,
should
it's
sell
on-
another $500 of wine then.
It's on page 18 under, section 43-121, subparagraph, well,
Not attached to vehicles, utility poles, light posts, or to the ground any consumed with this section. Is that what you're talking about, the prohibition?
yeah, I just don't want the flag flown any way than other than the way it was designed to properly
Yeah.
display.
Maybe in more general type of flag,
I,
not just American flag.
no, I got you, and I'm only
Yeah,
talking,
yeah, it doesn't
I'm
say
only
American
talking about the
flag.
American flag. That's the only thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, and maybe that should be added, American.
Yep,
Shall be displayed properly.
yep. And I don't care what the courts say, I just, that's a sword I'm willing to fall
I
on.
think that's okay to put in, to have that in.
Question, Jerry, the one he's talking about there, 43-121D, flags shall not be attached to vehicles. How can that be in a sign ordinance for the city?
We're talking about vehicles that are parked, not the ones that are on the roadway.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, now I got you, thank you.
Chase somebody down, drive down the road. That would be tough.
So these are all good points that we're gonna think about, right?
Mhm.
We're not
And
making recommendations.
For
tonight.
anybody that's interested, I told Jerry a little earlier, I did pull Forsyth County's sign ordinance. I did print it out, I do have it electronically, if you would like it, I will, send it to anybody that wants it.
That'd be
I
great.
haven't, I just got it, and I was going to read through that when I read through this, and just see if there was something that they had that we missed. Or, I know one thing that Forsyth County does for its temporary signage, like for advertising subdivisions, because they grew so fast. They put into their sign ordinance that all the temporary signs that people would put out saying, open house this weekend, advertising subdivisions for this weekend. 6 o'clock Friday night to, I believe, midnight on Sunday
I think we're currently that way
is
here.
what they were
5 or
there.
6 on
that
Friday, yeah.
They had to be out, and only one sign per development. 'Cause you would come out, put out 20 signs for the same development on a corner, and so.
Yeah, I think we were 6 on Friday, 8 on Sunday. No, 5 on Friday, 8 on Sunday, yeah.
Okay. I have a comment, and I know the sign ordinance isn't addressing this, but I would like to see uniform signs that point the way to something. The courthouse, if you go through Hilton Head, and there's all this, there's the sign saying, turn here for something important, then turn here, but it's all uniform everywhere, every intersection that this happens, or, because, this could be confusing for somebody who's coming here for the first time. How do you know to turn down there and then come in, because this is one way? So, and of course, that's not businesses and personal signs, that would be the city.
Any more discussion on this item? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Scott. Anybody second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Second.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Well, we should start talking about it and.
Okay.
All my little cheat notes.
These are the minutes that were approved tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Even City Hall this way.
Yeah, police station.
Almost 8 o'clock. I'm glad I ate dinner. Sorry you didn't. You should have taken a page out of my book.
I love it.
I know.
But I plan on having on my headstone.
Now you should have had dinner with me.
Yeah. Trying to get over that.
Oh my God. You act like you've been doing this forever.
Yeah, you kind of do.
So
Thank you.
good.
No.
I'll certainly be off.
Really?
Well, yeah, but no, oh, yeah.
Bye.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy